Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Galant Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to do a little bit of skull crushers in the garage. I'm just doing about 3 sets. I'm at the end of my workout. I just finished doing some chest and some back and a little bit of shoulders. And now I'm going to just do some flat skull crushers with dumbbells. Now I've decided right now to do 2 dumbbells, but I might go to the 1 dumbbell variant. We'll see. Because sometimes I find, well, let's talk about that. Sometimes when I go from 2 dumbbells to 1 dumbbells, because of the extra stability, I can get a better contraction and a better stretch. That doesn't mean that you want to always stabilize, right? It doesn't mean that you always want to stabilize your movements, but sometimes you will find that a machine or a stabilized movement will give you a better contraction or a better pump. So that's why I will go from, free weight type of movements to stuff that's stabilized a bit more. And yes, 2 arms on a dumbbell or 2 hands on a dumbbell is still a free weight. But because I'm not using 2 different, dumbbells, there's less stability involved. So sometimes it's not about stabilized or unstabilized. Sometimes it's just about more stabilized can lead you to greater mind-muscle connection with certain areas. But again, you want to always use variants of certain exercises. Like sometimes you use the 2 dumbbells, sometimes you use the barbell, sometimes you'll use like a machine, right? So that's why you see bodybuilders go back and forth. And I knew some bodybuilders that had quite a bit of development that used machines almost exclusively. Now, we can debate all day long on whether that's the best thing for you or not. But the thing is that you have to find out for yourself. You have to start training. And one thing that I did learn when I was doing one-legged squats for a period of time, I noticed that when I was doing Smith machine one-legged squats, I was getting better quad development, better ass development, right? But I wasn't getting a lot of adductor development, the inside of the thighs. I wasn't getting a lot of development there. And I could see it in my bodybuilding pictures in my first bodybuilding show. But once I started using, non-stabilized movements, like free weight movements of one-legged squats, then the inner thigh started to develop. So what I'm trying to say is that each exercise had its advantage and disadvantage. And based on what you feel is giving you the development that you're looking for, then you have to choose accordingly. So I would rotate. Sometimes I do the Smith machine one-legged squats, and then sometimes I would do the free weight one-legged squats or walking lunges. Like a lot of you guys see me do walking lunges or have seen me in the gym do that before. So yeah, sometimes, stabilized isn't all bad, So again, we're getting down to this whole thing where there's the guys out there that'll say, oh, free weights, otherwise, you're wasting your time. And then other guys will say machines, because the machines can provide a certain type of, arc in the movement, all that, Again, it's not so black and white. So anybody that's saying black and whiteness, I would say they're not taking you into consideration when they say this. And you always have to take the individual's circumstance into account. So I get some people asking me questions on the podcast all the time, but they'll just give me like generality questions. But without really knowing their individual situation, I can't really pinpoint what is the issue that's going on with them. And maybe I'm not even the right guy to know. But what I'm saying is the individual situation is always the elephant in the room. It's always the main factor contributing to whether something is working or not. And there could be a lot of variables at work, sleep, nutrition, the training program, and then we can go into exercises or range of motion. I mean, there's a million different things to look at. It's not just either or. So if you have like really complicated questions to ask me, then yeah, I'd recommend doing a consultation with me, and then we could talk back and forth for half an hour at least to find out where you're at, and maybe I can give you some ideas. But otherwise, if you just say, hey, why am I not putting on muscle? Well, that's a million people will have a million different reasons for that, So that's the thing. So yeah, today I'm going to do a bit of skull crushers, and I'm going to talk to you about another concept right after I do a first set here. I'm just going to do some warm-ups on some 20s. So one thing I want to say is that I get questions about, how do you know if you've done enough sets? How do you know if you're accessing the muscle belly? How do you know if you're training the muscle and not the joints and so forth, right? And I can give you ideas about this, but the funny thing is I find that a lot of people are so disconnected from their bodies. So when you first start on this bodybuilding path, there's a certain level of disconnection. There's no doubt. I mean, when I was in my teenage years, I would feel some soreness in a muscle or some sort of fatigue, but I wasn't as tuned in as I am now, obviously, right? But one thing I'm going to say is that awareness, and I've talked about this a million times, but awareness is such a big thing. Because when you're hungry, how do you know you're hungry, right? How do you know you're tired? Your body sends you certain signals, right? You've just learned to interpret those signals and therefore respond to them. So it's the same thing with the muscles. As you're paying attention, you're going to notice certain experiences that happen, such as fatigue, such as muscular burn, such as maybe bad pain, right? And then you watch what happens in your life the next day or two after and see what other symptoms reveal themselves to you. And you'll start to correlate one symptom with this symptom or this result, right? And you start to put this stuff together. And at first it's very frustrating because at first it feels like you're flying blind. So you start with a template. Somebody says, just do standard, 2 or 3 sets for a body part. Don't do any more than that. You're going to overtrain, that kind of stuff. That's where these absolute rules come from. It's not that they're absolutely true for everybody, but what they do is they give you an idea of where to start. So based on this, I had a question of a guy saying, how do you know if you've done enough sets? Well, I talk about this, again, I've talked about this before, but basically what you'll notice is that you'll have a drop in your performance, like a pretty drastic drop. Like, so say you could do 12 reps to failure with a certain weight, and then all of a sudden you're dropping down in the next set or two after taking 2 minutes rest or a minute and a half rest. Then you notice you're going from 12 reps down to like 8 reps or 7 reps. Then you notice that, then you know pretty much that you've basically worked the muscle enough and you've exhausted it a certain amount. And then there'll be some adaptation that will take place, right? So that's what I look for. I look for that critical drop-off point, after taking about, 2 minutes rest in between sets so that your creatine stores are restored. And that can happen from anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes, somewhere around there. So by doing that, having adequate rest, and then seeing what the critical drop-off point is, then you can kind of get an idea of where your fatigue is. Now for me, I just found that just, anywhere from, 3 to 6 sets was more than enough most of the time, unless I really wanted to push volume. But, you could always try the other approach, just train as hard and as long as you want, right? And then see how long it takes you to recover from that. And what'll happen is you'll either burn out or you'll notice you'll need extra days off, and then see if you're actually getting results. And if you're not getting results, then try cutting the sets in half and then see how long it takes for you to recover. How long does it take for the soreness or the tightness to go away, and then train again, And I know I've said this before, I always train when I'm a little bit sore, but for just experimental purposes, you could say, I'm going to wait until I feel like absolutely no soreness left in the muscle, and then I'm going to hit it again. And, you do these experiments. And as you do these experiments, you start to find out what the truth is for you. And also on paper, what is giving you more results? What's making you look better in the mirror? What's helping you put on more strength? So you can't sidestep this stuff. As much as people will try to tell you that, oh, this is the absolute answer, that's the absolute answer. It's not true, because there's a lot of people that'll start with one workout program that was given to them by somebody. And then you'll notice that after they've trained for 5 or 6 years, that workout program evolves, and then they start to incorporate different things. Well, the reason why is because obviously that first workout program maybe wasn't perfect for whatever they needed in that moment. Because that's the other thing that happens. Your body adapts, and sometimes it needs something different in order to go to the next step. Sometimes just a standard, 5x5 program or 3 sets of 10 or whatever it is you're doing, right? Is no longer doing it. And then you notice you flatline or you're not getting any more results. And then you change things up and experiment. And that's really what happens. So you can't avoid experimentation. That's really the whole point. You're going to have to experiment a bit. Just start with a simple template like I just outlined. You could just start with just doing 2 or 3 sets per body part once every 2 to 3 days, and then go from there. And then just see what's happening in your body and observe from there. I mean, the way I started off training was I did upper body workout 3 times a week. And I do about 3 sets per body part. And I do my chest, my back, my shoulders, and my buys and my tris, right? And I did 3 sets of 10 each body part. That's what I did. And the 10 reps was pretty much to failure. But yeah, just start with something simple like that, you know? And use a weight that's easy for you at first, so that way you're not getting injured, and make sure that your technique is good, of course. You know, so get somebody to teach you if you don't know. And then from there, then the experiment begins, you know? And that's really what I'd recommend. Hey? Yeah. So the other thing that happens in the comment section quite a bit is that you get a lot of people that they won't believe anything you say, even if you've produced results, right? They don't believe anything you say. Like you say, hey, I tied my shoes, right? And they'll say, produce the study, otherwise your shoes aren't tied, right? It's like crazy. There's like this insanity you see, like these people are mentally ill. But my point is, I get these comments where people think that somehow if a study doesn't exist proving what you know to be true, or what you've actually established results with, then it can't exist, right? So I'm just going to say this. Every single discovery that was scientifically made had to be made at some point, right? It had to be made at some point. But that means science before that hadn't yet made that discovery. You see what I'm saying? But some people think that science is infallible, like somehow science knows everything about everything. And top scientists will tell you the opposite. They'll say, we think we know some things, but there's still stuff up for debate, like a lot of stuff up for debate. So what I'm trying to say is that studies are not to be absolutely trusted. You just take them as a piece of the puzzle and put them into your understanding. But that's always evolving. Your understanding's evolving, and science is also evolving. The evolving understanding of certain mechanisms of the body are also evolving. So a lot of times you'll see people that are really great at something or gotten results, and science has not been able to explain how that happened yet. Not 100%, right? So, you know, there's also a lack of respect for experience. That's what I'm going to say. You know, and you guys might see this. I'm sure a lot of you guys that are watching this channel are experts in your, you know, certain things. Maybe there's certain disciplines that you've mastered, and you'll get certain people that'll say, oh, because there's no study on whatever it is that you've mastered, then that means it can't be true. You did not master something, or you didn't, you know, establish some sort of proficiency in what you're doing. And that is the tragedy of this day and age, where people will look at something that's on paper rather than the person in front of them, rather than the relationship with the person in front of them, and give them let's just say, give them a chance to explain their perspective and what happened and why they suspect certain results happened. And if the results are there, there's obviously some truth at work, you know, and that's all I can say about that. So yeah, in the end, trust your experience, because your experience is going to be 10 steps ahead of whatever the literature is, especially if you're one of the best people in whatever field it is that you're in. You're going to be way ahead of the average, you know what I'm saying? So if you're way ahead of the average, a lot of studies and a lot of general understanding won't have caught up with your understanding yet, you see? So yeah, I guess it boils down to respecting your own genius. When you've made a discovery and the fact that it actually has produced results, then you're onto something, regardless of what the general sheep think, you know? So that's all I got to say about that. Mountain. So yeah, I'm going to do some more sets of triceps, but I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And if you need to get hold of me, just go to naturalglandbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the page supporters where they tune into the podcast every week, and take care for now.